Hello, beautiful people. It is me, Tasha K with Godeste, and today we are getting into the money milestones that you should hit before 30. Now, I want you to prepare yourself because this might hurt a little bit, or it might feel really good depending on where you are. And I know that some of you are listening to this and you're thinking, or maybe you thought about it when you read the title, that ship has sailed. I am past 30. However, even if you are past 30, there is still something that you can get from this conversation. I want you paying attention to, have you checked these things off of your list? Have you started to solidify and build that foundation? Because if not, even if you are past your 30s, then these are going to be some important milestones that you want to hit no matter how old you are. And I remember when I got my first job working in corporate America for a Fortune 50 company managing $100 million budgets for some of the biggest brands in the world. I thought that I had so much time to get my finances together. And somehow I blinked and now I'm 36. So where does the time go? So I understand, like, one day you're graduating college, living your best life, and the next day you are well into your 30s, pushing on 40, wondering where the time went. But the answer is we're here now. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do. So that's what we're going to get into in this video. And don't worry, I'm also going to do money milestones for 40 and money milestones for 50. So that is going to be coming down the line. But for today, we're going to talk about the money milestones that you should hit before 30. And what I want you to be doing is listening for, have you started thinking about that? Have you started working on that? Or have you checked that off your list? And I want you to comment down below and let us know, where do you stand? How many of these milestones have you hit? And how many of them are still on your radar? All right. So let's get into it. The number one milestone that I recommend that you hit before you turn 30 is building your budget practice. And there's a reason that I say it that way. Now, some people would say that you should learn how to budget. But I think that type of wording gives this idea that, like, at some point you have learned it. But a budget isn't something that you learn. A budget is something that you do. It is a living and breathing document, and it is changing all the time, just as you are changing. And so I think that sometimes the way we think about budgeting is like this pretty document that we completed. And for most people, they do that pretty precious budget and they never look at it again. They feel good because they did it, but that's it. But the way that I want you to relate to your budget is as a document that is actually and actively informing the way that you live on a day-to-day basis. This is a document that is infused with your values, and it is responsible for creating your future as it relates to your finances and your assets, the things that you are building. It is so pivotal. Like, when we look at our money, when we look at our finances, it's like that's what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It's the stuff of life. And so your budget isn't something that you're doing one time and then putting on the back burner. And the reason that I call it a practice is because it's not like, it's like any other practice. You're going to try it and try it. Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes you're going to grow out of it. And it's not this thing that needs to be perfect. So sometimes people get discouraged from their budget because they feel like it needs to be this image of perfection, and they feel that when they're not doing what they said they were going to do in their budget, they feel like it's a failure, like they failed. That couldn't be further from the truth. Your budget is a document that is informing you, right? So even if you just follow it 50% of the time, great. Now you want to look to see, okay, what can I do to get that to 60%? What can I do to get that from 70%? What are the things in my life that I need to move around? What are the things in my mindset that I need to elevate? These are the things that you're looking for. Your budget is not going to be a magic thing that you do and then all of a sudden it's done. It doesn't work like that. So taking the time to really understand the power in your failure of your budget, because that's going to help you get a handle on so many other things in your life as you're working toward that 30, getting towards your 30s. If you learn how to be okay with failure and just keep and go again, try again, refine it, remodel it, recalibrate it, and keep going, that is going to serve you so well, not just in your budget, but in so many of the other areas of your life as well. All right. So that is number one. And before I move on, because I was about to move on, but I remembered something. Y'all be acting like if you don't have enough money, that means you don't really got a budget. No, ma'am. No, sir. Absolutely not. I don't care if you have a dime. How are you allocating it? What are you doing with it? Okay? I got agreements. I got agreement from the people. So that we already know how y'all be, how we be, okay? So even if you're not making a lot of money, if you get to the end of the month and all your bills aren't paid, I still want you looking to see how much money came in and how are you choosing to intentionally allocate it, all right? And I don't care if you're saving $10 a month. There was a time when I was only able to save $20 a week. So it's not the amount that matters here. It is the habit. It is the practice. And I don't want to hear any excuses. Even if you save zero, I want you saying, I saved zero. If you're going into the negative, I want you to know I'm going into the negative $200 this month. All right? And, this ain't new to nobody. People been going in the negative for as long as time. Okay, I remember in 2018, that was a hard year. My bank account would be in the negative $800. Feel that pressure. You talk about pressure. You feel that pressure on your chest. You feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. But you still have to be paying attention. You still have to be locked in. When I saw that negative, I was like, okay, after I passed out, revived myself. Now it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Got to make some money. How am I going to do that? How much do I need to make? How much am I planning to make sure that this doesn't happen next year? So building your budget practice is something that I want you to focus on no matter where you are in your finances. And for those of you who are like, well, I got a lot of money, so, I got ample. Y'all be the worst ones sometimes. It's my clients who have a lot of money that don't want to save none of it, okay? So building the habit now ensures that once you get into that semi-six-figure range, once you get into that six-figure range, you're going to have the habits of a multimillionaire. Started from the bottom, but you're going to get there, all right? Now I can move on to number 2. In your 30s, save your first 10K. Do whatever you got to do to save your first 10K. Okay. Now I hear some people talk about the first $100,000 is the hardest, and I agree. But for people who are not born with a silver spoon, for people who don't have no inheritance, for people whose parents were living below paycheck to paycheck, getting to the first 10K can be like, how, where, and so taking the time in your 20s where everybody else might be worried about what they looking like or, they want to have the appearance of wealth. This is the time for you to focus on the substance of wealth. Because the more you do in your 20s, the less hustling and struggle you will have to do in your 30s. And just look around at your friends who are in their 30s, who are YOLOing it up in their 20s. And I promise you, they're going to tell you, you know what, I wish I had just dialed it back a little bit. I wish that I had just been a little bit more intentional. I wish instead of blowing my entire paycheck on name brands and Stanley cups. I know they didn't have Stanley cups back then, but whatever the equivalent was, I wish that I had just put a percentage of that into my savings account. I would be so much better off. My life would be so different. I wouldn't be worrying about what the future is going to look like. So you have that information now. And if you have already passed 30 and you don't have that 10K, then this is more important than ever. For my clients, this is who I call the 10K crew. This is what we're focused on for 2024. I'm working with over 50 people to help them build their first 10K. And for me, I said, enough is enough. We cannot continue to be digging ourselves into a hole because we don't have the discipline and we don't have the knowledge. When you have both of those things, it becomes so much easier to do what you need to do. So I cannot stress enough to you. For most of my clients, I'm trying to have them on that 100K journey. And a lot of people in the marketing space, you hear the gurus talking about, oh, $1 million this, 6-figure that. Over 50% of Americans don't have $1,000 in the bank. So who are you talking to? Please inform me. So I want to talk to all the people who are looking at what is it like to build from the bottom. That's why my program is called Wealth from Scratch, because I know that a lot of you are looking like, you know, I'm making some money, but it seems like I don't have much left over at the end of the month. All right, so do what you need to do to get to your first 1K and then that 10K, all right? Moving on to number 3, make your first investment. I know that when I was growing up, my parents didn't even have a savings account, okay? Like, they were grown adults and they didn't have a savings account. And I'm over here like, I want to invest. And I didn't know how to invest, but I didn't let that stop me. And what you let stop you is the difference between people who achieve a goal and people who are always wanting to achieve a goal. So when I decided that I wanted to invest and I didn't know how, guess what I did? I went to Google. And then I didn't even type in nothing fancy. I was how to invest in the stock market. And I just built from there. And so we have a program actually inside of our Wealth from Scratch Academy called Stock Market Mastery. And you see people doing their day trading and doing Forex and doing all these things, and they're showing you how much money they made. They don't show you how much money they lose. So I'm not talking about, you know, trying to be a day trader or trying to be a gambler and calling it investing. I'm talking about truly learning the principles of investing and doing that by fearlessly making your first investment. And you don't have to necessarily know what you're doing. Start with an ETF, start with an index fund, and then watch your investment grow and look to see what is happening to it and why. It can be $20 a month. It can be $30 a month. It can be $50 a month. You can start small. I started investing in college, and I started with $50 a month. All I had was a college job. Okay? And this is why, you know, you're not going to be able to get me to accept the excuses. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Okay? So when I tell you build wealth from scratch, that's because I did it. I started building wealth with pennies, nickels, and dimes in real life. Okay? So I know it's possible. I don't care if you have $10. That's just the beginning. That's not where you're going to end up. Don't let the humble beginnings stop you. Don't despise those small beginnings, because that is going to be what you're learning from, and that is what's going to take you far. You have people who have $100,000 invested, but they don't have a clue of where it's actually going. I have people who I've met who have had me look at their portfolios that they thought was invested, but it wasn't. So it's not about having a lot of money. It's about paying attention and doing the best with what you have, okay? So make your first investment by any means necessary. It's not about getting it right. It's just about taking action, okay? Number 4, become credit card debt free. Or better yet, just don't rack up the credit card debt in the first place. If I got you early enough. If you're here early enough, you're probably not. Most people, they've already done it. Like the credit card debt is already there. So pay off as much debt as you can, as quickly as you can in your 20s, so that as you go into your 30s, you're not continuously trying to dig yourself out of a hole. Okay, that's the hardest thing when I'm working with clients, and some of my clients have the opportunity to start from ground zero. Some people are like, I have no money, and they think it's the end of the world. No, there are some people who have no money and they have a lot of debt. And I'm talking about credit card debt specifically. We're not gonna look at student loan debt right now. Let's put the student loan debt over there. We're gonna just put that over there for now. It's the credit card debt. All right, so I want you to do the best that you can to manage your debt, to avoid it if you can, and if you couldn't, to try to get rid of it before you move into your 30s, so that in your 30s, you can focus on building, okay? And then finally, I don't know how y'all gonna feel about this one. Number 5, the fifth milestone that you should hit in your 30s or before 30 is making $70,000 a year. Now, statistically, I don't know how probable that is. I didn't look it up. But what I will say is the reason that I hit the 70K number is because for my clients, I get to see how they're able to allocate their money once they've hit 70,000. Before 70,000, it's a lot of struggle. It's a lot of living paycheck to paycheck. Even if they're able to save and invest, saving and investing puts them in a place of, that feeling of living paycheck to paycheck. It's just that they're living that way, but they're also planning for the future. But when you start to hit 70,000 and above, that's when you can plan for your future, but also not feel like you're struggling at the same time. So you can take care of your bills. You can take care of everything you need to do in the present. You can take care of everything you need to do to prepare for your future. And you can do those fun things that you want to do without having to stress, okay? So that is my take on the money milestones that you should hit before 30. I hope that you have enjoyed this list, but what I really want to know is which ones have you already hit and which ones are still on your radar, all right? So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate you being with me, and please, if you got anything from this video, share it with somebody that you know. I do want you to like, comment, and subscribe, of course, but I really want you to take this, hit the link and send it to somebody that you think would benefit. Because like I said, a lot of times, by the time the client gets to me, they've already made the mistake. If we can avoid the mistakes up front from Jump Street, man, we'll be able to go so much farther, so much faster. Now that you know the money milestones that you should hit before 30, definitely make sure that you tap into this next video that's coming up. And really just peruse the channel overall, because if you're locking into your finances, then this is the conversation that you want to be in. We're going to be talking about budgeting, investing, and reaching your full financial potential.